Drive Time on RTE Radio 1, sponsored by Zurich. We believe small actions can have great impact. Take a small action today. Speak to a financial broker about a Zurich pension.
Text 51551. Drive Time on RTE Radio 1.
Now, while we've been on air, the Irish Defence Forces have issued a press release commending the bravery of the women who have described being sexually harassed and assaulted when they served in the Irish Armed Forces. On Saturday, this station aired the documentary Women of Honour, in which female veterans detailed a litany of abuse, harassment and failure to sanction offending colleagues. Here's one of them, Yvonne O'Rourke, speaking about the impact this had on her.
He was an officer, he was a senior officer. And in my mind, he completely abused his rank, he abused his authority, he abused absolutely everything, and he abused me. I used to think, I had so much guilt for a long time. And I was like, maybe, you'd have these maybes. And I know in my heart, and I know the truth is, I never consented to anything that night. I never consented to him touching me. I never consented to him being with me. I never consented to anything. Like, I'm 47 now. That happened to me when I was 23. That's half of my life ago. And to this day, that still affects me.
Well, for more on this, we're joined now by the former soldier whose doctoral thesis exposed the systematic nature of sexual harassment within the Defence Forces 20 years ago. Dr. Tom Clonan, thank you very much for coming into us this evening.
Thanks, sir.
I might firstly get your reaction to that statement from the Defence Forces this evening.
Well, I welcome the announcement of an independent inquiry, but I do have some concerns about the statement issued by the Department of Defence this morning and by the Minister, in which they said that they were at an advanced stage of appointing nominees to this inquiry. By what mechanism were people given an opportunity to express an interest in participating? By what mechanism were these nominations advertised? By what process were they interviewed? That's very disturbing. And I think after the Catherine Zappone incident, I think we need to move on past just appointing people that and actually have a proper, robust and transparent system in place for these inquiries and nominations. It is absolutely essential that the Women of Honour be at the centre of the design of this new independent inquiry. They have to be part of the design of its scope, of its parameters, and they have to be in the room, centrally involved in the nomination of the independent investigation authority and those people who are going to participate in it. We have to get past the department and the army investigating themselves and silencing the research that has been carried out beforehand.
We don't know, do we, that the independent review that Simon Coveney is talking about, that will be the department investigating themselves?
Well, we don't know anything, because we're told that it is at a very advanced stage, but we don't know by what mechanism, by what process, by what, and this is, goes to the heart of the problems that have confronted government in recent weeks over August. But look, the original research back in 2000, which I published, that has been on the public record for 21 years. And it sets out in forensic detail the sexual harassment, the sexual assault, the rape of women in our defence forces, in the Army, Air Corps and Naval Service. The voices, the first-hand voices of 60 women, 43 of whom I interviewed in Ireland and 17 a control sample in Lebanon. And their accounts are shocking. And I was so distressed to hear the same disclosures being made on Sunday, 21 years later. And in all that time, I have never once been contacted by the Department of Defence, by anybody in the Minister's Department about the research. And the research, which is available online, it's one click and you can see it. I also identified the causes of the toxic, misogynistic culture in our defence forces. It's all there in black and white. And I also set out the remedies based on international comparisons, comparative analysis with the US military, with the British Army, with the then RUC on Garda Síochána. That research has never, ever been consulted or engaged with, and it's a disgrace. And, I'm prepared to give whatever assistance or support pro bono I don't care. But the women of honour who spoke absolutely must be front and centre. And I have to tell you, Sarah, in the last 21 years, I've written about this in international academic journals, in the international military journals. I've broadcast about it. I've done documentaries. I've done interviews. I've written several articles in the Irish Times, in the Journal. In all that time, I have never once heard a woman go on the record. And those women, Yvonne and Karina, they are to be commended. And I know, if they're listening, that this is revisiting them now and their families. And it's extremely traumatic. But the defence, the department, and I'm sorry to say the military authorities were very, very determined to silence my research, and they have kept it silent for 21 years. They don't even mention it in their press releases today. But all of the remedies and the root causes are outlined there. I'm also involved, Sarah.
Sorry, what do you mean by silence? We're not talking about the current minister, obviously, because that was 20 years ago that your research was published.
In the last 21 years, I have not once been approached by the Department of Defence or the Minister or anybody big and essentially it is because it's all set out there, it's available, the causes.
Yes, and I wanted to ask you about that. What did you identify as the causes and what did you identify as the remedies?
Well, there's a complex number of them, but one of them would be the brigade training centres. The education establishments within the Defence Forces require a root and branch review because that's where the bullying starts. It started for me in the cadet school, in the military college where we train to be officers. There's a culture of negative reinforcement, of sanction, of punishment, of collective punishments, of concealing things, and that's where it starts. But there are other issues. Keeping the numbers of women in the Defence Forces artificially low. And by doing so, they don't have the critical mass or the momentum. And as such, they're subject to hostile scrutiny. And the international research shows that when you keep numbers of people low, when you disempower them by, not allowing them to do certain courses or duties, when there's an unequal power relationship like that, incidences of violence and sexual violence go up through the roof. That's internationally observed.
Because you're in the minority.
And that was not addressed in Challenge of a Workplace. That was not addressed. And I've never been approached. I would say also, Sarah, over the last 2 decades, because of the high-profile nature in the way that the military authorities sought to, destroy my reputation, threaten me with criminal prosecution and silence me, because of the public nature of that, I've been approached by dozens of women, and I've prepared expert reports for legal cases up until, in the last number of weeks. Young pilots, lives destroyed, careers ended, young army officers, soldiers of all ranks, women and young men, suicides. You wouldn't, like the absolute wreckage, the destruction of young lives. And it is a crisis and it has to stop. And I think that is probably part of the reason why the women have decided finally to go on the record, and I commend them for the bravery. But this has to be a new inquiry. It can't be piggybacked onto some revisited independent monitoring group. It has to be a standalone independent inquiry with the women at its very heart. Okay,
so your concern when the Minister says that plans for an independent inquiry are at an advanced stage, your concern is how could they be at an advanced stage given this documentary has just been published and these women's voices need to be heard?
And I contacted the Minister. And I have great respect for Minister Coveney. I think he's a good man. I've contacted him directly. I've direct messaged him. I've written to Jackie McCrum, the Secretary General of the Department of Defence today, and I've said all of the answers that you're looking for, all of the root causes of this violence that's destroying so many young lives is there. It's on the record. It's been there for 21 years. Look at it and listen to the women and bring them in. Don't bring them in after you've appointed people. Bring them in and involve them in the design and the scoping of this thing. Like, apart from anything else, we face very, very significant challenges on this island, very, very significant security challenges. We must have an armed forces that's fit for purpose, that is diverse and reflects the society that it's drawn from. And we must not tolerate in any area of Irish public life the systematic, and that's what it is, systematic and systemic abuse of women. And the cohort, there's a significant cohort of men in the Defence Forces, some of whom are very senior rank, who are very vocal in their misogyny and their opposition to women in the workplace, and they have to be called out. So I'd say to all the good people in the Defence Forces, the ones who stood by and watched what happened to me and stood by and watched what happened to the women who spoke out, don't stand idly by. Call out these people. You know who they are. Call them out.
All right. Well, Tom, thank you very much for coming in to speak to us, and hopefully we'll be speaking to you about it again over the next couple of weeks and months as hopefully that independent review, however it looks, will get underway. Just to take a look at the statement that we did get from the Defence Forces, it says Óglaigh Ní HÉireann would like to commend the bravery of the women who recently came forward and recounted their negative experiences while serving in the Defence Forces. As an organisation, all incidents of harassment, sexual harassment, bullying and discrimination are treated with the utmost seriousness, and the Defence Forces share the deep concern about the allegations made, and they go on to say that they support that independent review. As I said, no doubt this is a topic we will be coming back to with Tom. Thank you very much for coming into us.